Okay, hi everyone. Sorry there's a little bit of a delay there. My computer crashed just before getting set up. I'm just getting my computer set up. Thanks for dropping by this afternoon. I do look forward to this quiet hour to lose myself in War and Peace. Hope you guys do too. Can't believe that a few weeks back it was already pitch black by this time, and I really do feel positive about the evening's drawing on. So anyway, let me just move the camera this way a bit and make sure it's in position, and carry on reading for 55 minutes. And just check if the camera's okay. That's a bit better. So we're reading on from part 37, and Prince Andrei has just been, it's the Battle of Borodino, and Prince Andrei has just been taken into the field surgeon's tent to have an operation, it seems. Let's see if I'm in position. So I'll read for 50 minutes and then give a bit of a feedback. Okay, so I got up to a new volume, volume 3, part 7. So we're still in part 3, volume 3, part 7. And the section that I started off from, part 37, was Prince Andrei being operated on in this ghastly field surgery tent where there's people having their legs chopped off and people screaming and passing out from pain and etc. And Prince Andrei has an operation which is so painful it makes him pass out, and he wakes up and he's alive, but it doesn't carry on. It sort of shifts then straight to Napoleon walking about the battlefield and looking at all the dead people, and Tolstoy has Napoleon say that he's testing his inner strength, but things are starting to get to him. And also, more at a deeper level, we start to get this that I've come across several times in this novel. It's kind of Tolstoy's theory of cause and effect, or what we might call more technically structure and agency, because Tolstoy says Napoleon's walking around the battlefield awaiting the end of the action, the battle, of which he considered himself the cause, but which he was unable to stop. And then it says further, riding around the battlefield strewn with dead and mutilated men by his will, as he thought. And what I think what Tolstoy's trying to get at here, which he mentions a lot, and as we'll see in a bit more detail, that Napoleon is not the cause of this action as he thinks. We'll get to a little bit more of a theoretical breakdown in a second, but there's then a little aside where he has Napoleon sort of. I don't know whether these are actually from Napoleon's memoirs or whether Napoleon did write memoirs or whether he just makes this up. But Napoleon is imagining writing his memoirs, or what he thought would be his successful memoirs of conquering Russia. And there's this idea that struck me, that at least from what Tolstoy's saying, that what Napoleon wanted to do was set him up as kind of a modern emperor, but under a modern kind of republican emperor, if that makes sense. He has this to say. If Napoleon had been successful, Napoleon supposedly writing, in this way Europe would become truly one people, and each person travelling everywhere would have always found himself in a common fatherland. It would have called for all rivers to be navigable for everyone, the communality of all seas, and the great standing armies be henceforth reduced to nothing but guards for the sovereigns. On returning to France, to the bosom of the fatherland, great, strong, magnificent, peaceful, glorious, I would have proclaimed its limits immutable, all future wars purely defensive, and my new enlargement anti-national. I would have associated my son with the empire. My dictatorship would have ended, and his constitutional reign would be begun. And then he talks about how you could travel around this united Europe, sort of solving people's problems and throwing up scattering monuments and benefactions all over and everywhere. So I got this idea of this Napoleon just getting to this idea of an enlightened new emperor. Anyway, back to this structure and agency idea. Tolstoy's kind of recounting his idea of why the French ended up losing, even though they do take Moscow, and Moscow is burnt. The French end up. Oh no, sorry, this is before Moscow's taken. So he's talking about if the French and if at the Battle of Borodino, if the French and the Russians had have just kind of looked at each other or put a bit more effort in, they could have smashed each other. But the Russians didn't make the effort to attack the French because they weren't attacking the French, they were just in a defensive position. Whereas the French couldn't just attack the Russian army and destroy it, even though they could have done that, because their spirits had been broken by that point. Even though they do end up eventually taking Russia, but then sort of retreating afterwards. And it made me think that Russia is like this. It's like this huge amoeba that it's so big. You go inside it, you get slowly whittled down, and then you get swallowed and spat out. Then we get properly into Tolstoy's sort of theory of structure and agency. He recounts, which I've never heard this recounted in this way. He talks about Achilles and the tortoise and why the tortoise never overtakes. Sorry, why Achilles never overtakes the tortoise. And it's that idea that if you shoot an arrow at a wall and it's 1 meter away, and then it's half a meter away, and then it's half a meter, and you get smaller distances, and it never actually meets. And that's supposedly what happens in the story of Achilles and the tortoise. So Achilles never takes over the tortoise because he's only ever getting half as close. And the point I'm making with this, which is the point that Tolstoy makes, is that that's the wrong way of looking at it. You don't look at little increments. You don't look at individual people, no matter how supposedly powerful or small they are. You have to look at the fact that human will occurs continuously. Achilles would take over the tortoise because we're not dealing with an increment and then another little increment and then another little increment. We're dealing with things in flow. And that's how human will works. So what Tolstoy is saying is that if when historians are trying to figure out how this all happened, looking at individuals and what they did is wrong. What we need to look at is the strivings of individuals in motion. Okay, there's no individual unit. You have to look at the strivings of the individuals. The strivings of the people as such. And then he talks about, how did the war start? Well, maybe it was from the revolution. There were these particular individuals and things that they wrote, and it fired up this revolution. But he says this explanation is correct because in this explanation, a weaker phenomenon is taken as the cause of a stronger one. The sum of individual human wills produced the revolution of Napoleon, and only the sum of those wills endured them and then destroyed them. And then someone might reply, well, there are great men, and obviously there are great men. But then he starts talking about cause and effect. Just because you see great men acting doesn't mean that they actually cause something, in the same way that when a train pulls up and you hear the bell go, it's not the bell that is powering the train forward. There's something else going on there. So, and then he starts talking about the laws of history and that there needs to be new sciences to work this out. And it made me think of Marx. I wonder if he ever came across Marx in his life. Probably not. Then it goes on with the Russians retreating and letting Moscow fall. And Kutuzov, who I think must be like their main general. Sorry if that sounds really ignorant, but I know so little of this Russian history. But Kutuzov seems to be the main general, and it has him in a lot sort of discussing where that he's going to have to, let Moscow fall to the hands of the French. And there's this passages about what the common people in Moscow did, and he takes this matter of factly, they did what they had to do. The Moscow citizens, the rich ones, left, and then the poor ones set fire to everyone else, and this is what they should have done, but, in order to not be ruled by Frenchmen. There's a little bit of a preface where it says the French end up leaving. I don't know why. I'm not at this point why they just abandoned it. And then in the last couple of chapters, that I got to, it shifts to this woman called, sorry, the phone, Helena, who is kind of converting to Catholicism. I think trying to get out of a previous marriage by saying it's null because she's now a Catholic and she was married under a different religion. Anyway, so all very interesting. Tolstoy's theory of cause and effect there, and of great men, so to speak, versus structure versus agency, basically. So I enjoyed reading that. My mind drifted off and really focused on the text, and I hope you've had a good hour to relax. We'll do the same thing next week from so we're in part 3, volume 3, section 6-7, and it was still on Helena and whatever she's doing about converting to Catholicism and why she's doing it. Okay, thank you. Hope you have a good weekend.